Hello, my name is Stephanie Jacobson, and today I'm going to show you two of the basic embroidery stitches. I have ready my piece of fabric in my wooden embroidery hoop, and then I also have my needle. I use a chenille needle with a larger eye, and my thread is already needles threaded with a little knot in the end. If you need assistance on what supplies you need, how to get your fabric in the embroidery hoop, the type of thread or needle, and then how to thread your needle, please be sure to check out my video first on gathering your supplies and threading your needle. So the first stitch I'm going to show you is the running stitch. And in my embroidery sampler here, you'll see that's the very top stitch here, the teal thread that almost looks like a dashed line. So that is a running stitch, and I'm going to show you how to do that one first. So we've got our needle threaded, ready to go. I've got a knot in the end so it doesn't pull through the fabric. And wherever you're going to start, we're going to bring the needle up from the back of our fabric. I'm right-handed, so I like to work right to left. That's just what's most comfortable for me. If you're left-handed, it might make more sense for you to work left to right. And I'm just going to start at the top since I'm going to just do a little sampler of all the different stitches. All right, so I'm just going to bring my needle up from the back of the fabric, just like that. I'm going to pull it all the way through, and the knot is going to stop it. So we have our thread in our fabric ready to go. And then to do a running stitch, we are just going to go down through the top of the fabric, travel over about 1/4 of an inch or so, and then come back up through the top. So we're just going to go, I'm going to put the needle down, and I do my stitches about 1/4 inch apart. You just don't want to make them so large that you might snag something on the stitch. And then I'm going to go over just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch again, and kind of keeping it in line with the first stitch I did. You can see from the back, my needle is just going to go down, actually come back up through the bottom. So now my thread's back on top, and basically for a running stitch, we're just going to keep doing that. Down through the top, and then back up from the back. Now once you get comfortable with that, you can actually do more than one stitch at a time. You can actually load a couple stitches on your needle. So I can go down, and rather than pull my needle all the way through the fabric, I'm just going to poke it right back up, just like that. So that way, when I pull it through, I make the stitch that way. And that once you get more comfortable, that just, you can go a little bit faster. You can actually load a couple stitches like that. We're just going to pull it through. It also helps keep your line straighter too if you're doing more than one stitch at a time. I'm just going to finish my line of running stitches. So just a couple stitches at a time. If you need to, it's certainly fine to go up and down until you get comfortable with that particular stitch. All right, and then I'm going to finish up my row of running stitches. So I'm going to go down through the top so that my thread ends up underneath. Because to keep the top looking all nice with your stitches, you'll always want to do all the traveling to another area on the back of your piece. So you can tell it definitely looks much better from the side than it does from the back. But the back's not going to show, so that's fine if it looks that way on the back. So that's the running stitch. I'll now show you the back stitch, which is very similar, except we're going to get a solid line because we're going to come back and fill in those spaces. So I'm going to do a row of running stitches, and so that I'm working more comfortably right to left, I'm actually just going to flip my my piece so that I can start from the right and go to the left. So to do a back stitch, I'm just going to bring the thread up, and I'm just going to do a row right under where I did the running stitches. And for this, you're going to go down and then come back up, and then on the running stitch that we just did, we just went over and did another stitch down. For the back stitch though, we're actually going to come back and fill in this space. So I'm going to join these two by going back down in that same hole. So this is going to give us a solid line. So every time I come back up, rather than making another stitch to the left, I'm coming back to the right and going down in that same hole. Whoops, no, sometimes that does happen. So this is going to make a solid line. So we're just going to go up, back to the right, down, attaching or joining those stitches. We're going to get a nice solid line. Now on the back stitch, to do more than one stitch at a time, when you come up and then you go back down, rather than pull your needle all the way through, we're actually going to bring it back through to the top, just a little bit past that. So that way we're all ready to go back down. And you're just kind of feeling with your needle, just like that. Do be careful when you've got your hand underneath. It's really helpful to guide your needle, but do be careful because the needle is still sharp and you don't want to poke your finger. And if you need to, you can just do it one part of the stitch at a time, whatever you're more comfortable with. As you get more practice, it does become easier. All right. So that is the back stitch. And the back stitch is really good for outlining things. You can, if you want to write your name or do letters. I'm actually going to show you how to, we're just going to stitch a little shape. So I'm going to draw just a heart on here. And if you are going to do this, it's better if you use like a disappearing ink that's made for fabric that disappears with heat. I don't have one handy, so I'm just going to use a pencil. And I don't know if you can tell, it's kind of light, but I drew a heart there. And I'm just going to use Backstitch to outline the heart. The same way we did the straight line, but we're just going to follow the curves along the heart to outline it. So I'm going to start, I'm going to come up from underneath, and I'm going to just start at right at the point of the heart there. So we're going to go down and then back up along the pencil line. And then we're just going to follow the pencil line. And when you go on curves, it does help to take a little bit shorter stitches. So I'm just going down and then up using the pencil guide as the outline. You don't want to pull really tight when you're pulling the thread through. I mean, you want to make sure there's not, like your thread's not loose, but if you pull too tight, it'll actually pull your stitching. So just enough to make sure the thread is pulled all the way through. As you can see, we're starting to get the outline of the heart. This is also really useful for letters. If you want to draw your name or a word on your piece and then use your thread to outline it. Again, sometimes it gets caught on that hook, which is okay. Just stop and loosen it. Same thing if you get a little knot, the best thing to do is just stop, get the knot out, and then keep on stitching. All right, so we've got half the heart done. All right, so there we go. You can see I'm halfway through stitching my little heart. So these are two very useful stitches, two good basic embroidery stitches. And I'll just show you quickly if you want to change threads or if you're done stitching and need to knot it off. The easiest way to do that is to take your needle and go not through the fabric, but just under the stitches. And what that will do is create a little loop, and then we're going to bring our needle back and through that loop, and that's going to create just a little knot there to tie our fabric off so that this doesn't unravel. And I usually like to do a second one just to make sure it's knotted off. Again, don't pull too tight on that knot or kind of hold your finger over it so you don't stretch the fabric. And then we'll just take our scissors, just leave a little bit of a tail, and that's it. You have now learned how to do a running stitch and a back stitch.